Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to do a book review, and the book I'm talking about today is going to be On the Beach by Nevil Shute. Just quick thoughts, or my recommendation. This book is amazing. Everybody should read this book. It was probably the saddest book I've read, maybe ever. Yeah, it was very bleak and not very hopeful, but so good. So good. The setup is basically, it's set in Australia, in like the very southern part of Australia, like Melbourne. Or actually a suburb of Melbourne that's even further south, just a little bit. It's like the southernmost place in the world where people live, pretty much. And it takes place in 1963. It was written in 1957, but it takes place, 2-3 years after a large-scale nuclear war between China, Russia, the United States, and a bunch of other European countries. So in the Northern Hemisphere, everyone was nuking each other. Basically, the whole Northern Hemisphere was destroyed. And there's all this fallout. And the cloud of radioactive particles is slowly like creeping down into the southern hemisphere and then further and further south and killing everybody, every living person, and dogs, cat, like everything as it's going down, right? And so these people in Melbourne, they like know that it's coming, and they know roughly when it's going to get to them and when they're going to start to feel the effects of the radiation, and then they're going to die. So they know this. That's the setup. But my God, it tells a amazing story about mortality and fear of death, and how people cope with the fact that they're going to die, and also how people are in denial about that. And it's very, very, very powerful and super sad. And so throughout this whole thing, you've got different characters. You've got all these different characters that are kind of reacting to this reality in different ways. For example, one of the main characters, he's a submarine captain. He's actually American, but he's in Australia for whatever, Navy. He's in the U.S. Navy. And his job is to go around in the submarine. He goes as far north as he can. They test how much radiation is in the air, and they kind of survey the coast from afar, through the periscope, and see if there's anybody around or whatever. They do actually get a radio signal from Seattle. So they go up there and they try to see what's going on. They send a person in a little boat, in a full radiation suit over there to explore and find where this signal's coming from and who's sending it, or if someone's sending it, or if it's automated. They don't know. But anyway, so he is from Connecticut, and his wife and kids, they're dead. Everyone in North America is dead. Everyone basically in the Northern Hemisphere is dead. And he's in Australia. But he knows this, logically, but he also is in denial about it, and he keeps saying things like, oh, well, I'm gonna go home, blah blah blah. He buys his wife a really nice emerald bracelet as a gift. He buys his son and daughter gifts so that when he goes home, he'll whatever. And then you eventually realize that he's talking about when he dies, he gets to go back and see them in some sort of afterlife or whatever. And it's just really sad the way that he's managing this whole thing. He's also very strict on the rules, even though it's the end of the world and everyone's gonna die and all this stuff. He doesn't allow alcohol on his ship or whatever. There's this girl that's in love with him, who she's a really interesting character too. Her name's Moira. But she's like in love with him, and he won't. He's like, I'm faithful to my wife. I won't, whatever. And she's like, well, that's a bummer. But it's just interesting because his wife's dead and stuff. So anyway, that's how he deals with it, and that's how he's kind of doing this thing. And then Moira, let's talk about her. She is kind of what you'd more expect from somebody who's like having to deal with this. Is she's just getting drunk all the time. She's like, whatever, we're gonna die. I'm just gonna have fun. I'm gonna go to parties. I'm gonna do whatever. Get drunk every day. Like, who cares? It doesn't matter. Yeah, which, I think would be a lot more prevalent if this was a true story. I think the debauchery, there was very little of that. Most people just carried on as if nothing was happening and, whatever. They just, like, were planning their garden and, doing things that weren't going to pay off until, years later, like, oh, let's plant some privacy shrubs. And then in 3 years, when they get big enough, we'll have, like, a privacy shrubbery. And it's like, okay, well, you're not going to be here in 3 years. You're going to be dead in 3 months. So weird things like that, like things they just carry on with their day-to-day lives. A lot of people, they're in like total denial. Then there's other people. There's this one doctor who buys a Ferrari and starts like fixing it up and getting it ready so he can race it in this like Grand Prix. And all the people that are racing it, like 4 people die in the race because they're just driving. They're like, whatever. If I die in the race, fine. If I win, fine. I'd rather die that way than a slow, agonizing death. So there's all these different like characters that are all kind of dealing with it differently. And like I said, there's not that much debauchery. I don't think like that's what you would expect, right? You'd expect people to just kind of go crazy and like more like Moira and just start drinking and doing whatever. But I think that the point of this book is not about that. I don't think it's about like what would people really do in this situation. I think it's more because there's a lot of parallels drawn between like, well, this doesn't change anything. We're still gonna die, same as always. We don't really know when, same as always, except we kind of do. So that's the only difference, is that we know it's coming. But that's not really different either. Like, everyone knows they're gonna die, and people carry on with their lives, as if they're not all the time. They do all kinds of stuff. They plan for the future. They have children. There's one family in here. It's kind of main characters. It's a wife, husband, and they have a baby, like less than a year-old baby. And they're talking about this baby, like what the kid's gonna do when it grows up and stuff, and they know that the baby's gonna die. Anyway, it's very sad because you're reading this. And you're reading the way that they're doing this, and you just feel so sorry for all these people, Anyway, and then, but on top of it, it's not just these people that are dying; it's humanity. They are the last. They are the last ones. They're going to die, and then, as a whole, our species will be extinct. I mean, I assume there might be, some people who are living underground in bunkers or something. They don't talk about that. They don't go into anything like that. So as far as we know, these are the last people on Earth, and they're gonna die, and then that's it. And yeah, so that's the story basically. Is just how it's not very long. It's just about how these people are dealing with this, and then every couple of weeks they get updates around like, oh, it's closer, it hit this town, oh yeah, that's only 400 miles away, oh, now it hit this town, oh yeah, it's closer, now it's only 180 miles away, whatever. And so it's just creeping slowly getting closer and closer and closer, and then they start to feel the effects of the radiation, and they start to get sick and things like that. And then so they, the government or whatever, people like the town, whatever structure is still in place. I'm not really sure. I don't know if the government is still around, but they start distributing like suicide packs and stuff for people who want to just end it all and not have to, die of radiation sickness. So yeah, and then so that's how the book ends. Is everyone does that, and it's really really sad. Yeah. So anyway, if you really want a book to depress you, this is it. This was really, really affecting. I've not stopped thinking about this. I probably finished this book maybe 4 days ago, and I can't stop thinking about it. It was so upsetting. And yeah, I mean, I didn't cry, but I was on the verge a couple times. There was a couple times where I was like, man. Phew. So anyway, I highly recommend it. I think it's a book that almost anyone should read. And you might not like it. It's not a fun book to read, but it's a good book to read. And the other thing to think about too is when this was written in 1957. This was like a real thing that people were like truly concerned about. Like this was height of Cold War with Russia. Anything could set off this nuclear war that could literally wipe out everyone on Earth. So this was like, when this was written, this was really like front and center in everyone's kind of mind of like, this is a real thing that could happen today. And like, that's another reason why I think this book is like really powerful. It's not so much today, even though we do still have, nuclear capabilities of this magnitude, between Russia and China and the United States and, the rest of the world. But I don't know if the threat of that is quite as looming as it was back in the 50s and 60s, or even, 70s and 80s, until the Soviet Union kind of collapsed. That was like a real fear that people had. So in that context, this is an interesting book too. So yeah, and then one other side, that's pretty much all I have as far as the actual book goes. I loved it, thought it was great. On a side note, this edition, I got it on Amazon. It's like a print to order edition, paperback. It was cheap. It was like $7 or $8 on Amazon, but it is garbage. It is there's so many typos and punctuation errors, misspellings of words. There was a couple of times where it pulled me out of it because like I couldn't understand what it was trying to say. Mostly I figured it out, but if you have an opportunity to get like a mass market paperback or a different version than this, please do. And then because this, like I said, it was pretty bad. Like it's like the guy just typed it up and then didn't spell check it, didn't nobody edited it or anything, and they just printed it. It was bad. There's not even a copyright page. It's just this is the first page, and then it goes right on to the story, and it's just wall of text all the way to the very, very end, like this, and that's the last page, and that's it. So it's really kind of a strange edition. I don't even know if like Amazon produced this and it's like even legal, because like I said, there's no copyright page, there's no information or anything, and it's so poorly edited. So book, great. This edition is garbage. And then also I read online, I was looking for like reviews and stuff on Amazon for this edition to see like what the deal was, why it was such a piece of crap. And the Kindle edition on there that Amazon has is apparently it's abridged. This is not. This is the actual book, but the Kindle edition is abridged. So it was, I guess, a rewrite. Somebody rewrote it and whatever. So I don't have that edition, so I can't speak to that, but I would just avoid that as well. So find an older version. Find one from whatever, just whenever, that is good and legit. Anyway, that's all I got. So let me know if you've read this book and what you thought. And that's it. Like and subscribe if you want to talk more about books with me. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Peace.